Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Tony Branner. I'm a wellness consultant, exercise physiologist in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've been working in the wellness field for about 33 years. I love what I do, and I especially love when I can team up with other passionate, mission-minded people who are really trying to help turn our sick care world back around into a well care world, help us perform better, help with disease prevention, and all of those amazing things. So tonight we're going to talk about a topic that is very, very close to the fire for all of us, and that is stress. And sometimes in my workshops, I don't even use the word stress management. I call it energy management, because the word stress stresses people out sometimes. But we have an amazing program for you tonight. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and turn it over to our panel of speakers. Hold on one second. Uh-oh, it disappeared. Hold on. Here it comes. Choose this. It's not.
These are always fun, these moments.
Yeah, sorry. It was right on my screen and it decided to go away. Here it is. That's why live events are so much fun.
Awesome.
There we go. Mendy?
Okay, so hi everybody, welcome. We're really happy and excited for you that you came and spent your evening listening to this webinar. My name is Mendy Dubov. I am a performance coach. I work with anyone really that's a performer, which is all of us, but specifically I work with athletes, stock traders, doctors, interestingly enough, anyone really that performs every single day and reaches moments like these, which is stressful. Like, this is exactly what this webinar is all about. So I'm going to talk to you real quick about what we're going to talk about in the webinar today. So let's go to the next slide. So today we're going to talk about what stress is. I'm going to cover the mental side of it and where it comes from. And then we have two other great experts on this webinar call that are going to talk about it from an emotional perspective as well as a nutritional. And we're going to cover some physical as well. And most importantly, we're going to talk about how do we manage it and decrease it, because that's exactly what we all came here for tonight, right? So, okay, so let's jump right in. What is stress? Stress is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. So you have a mental or emotional straining going on, and which results in you feeling that you have to reach a certain demand. So it can be at work where your boss is requiring you to reach a certain quota or presentation that you have to fill or do, and that circumstance is causing you to feel like you might not reach a certain demand, which is causing you to be stressed. Okay, so there were two psychologists that teamed up together. They have many theories about a lot of different things, but we're just going to talk about one right now, which is this little quote that he has, which is: stress is a pattern of negative psychological states and psychological response occurring in situations where people perceive threats to their well-being, which may be unable to meet. So again, it's a psychological, and this is the key that I'm going to talk about and cover, which is it's a psychological state, which means that it's self-imposed from our thoughts that we're thinking. It's from our mind. We're creating these thoughts in our head that stress is causing them. The thoughts are actually negative thoughts, which is why it's stress. And it's happening to people. And in these situations, we're perceiving them as threats to our well-being, and we might not be able to meet these circumstances or these requirements, which is causing us, again, to be stressed. Psychologically, stress is caused by fear of not being able to meet a goal, a requirement. Again, it's a little repetitive, but it's the idea that it's psychologically, which is, again, the key, that stress is being caused by the fear of not being able to meet a certain goal. So you can be a performer and you're about to get on stage, and if you feel like you're not being able to meet a certain level of excitement or satisfaction from the crowd, or if you're a someone at work and you feel like your presentation is not going to meet the quota or the expectations of your boss, that will cause you to be very stressed. And again, it's the psychological and that feeling that you are not being able to meet that certain requirement, which is causing you to be stressed. So it's a demand from an individual, which is also important. And lastly, it's the person that's being stressed interprets this to be positive or negative. Again, that's the key, that you are creating this stress in your mind and you can perceive it to be positive or negative. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide, which is there's positive stress and negative stress. And people think that stress is always bad. It's not. You could have stress that is good, which is called eustress, not U-Y-O-U. It's actually E-U stress. So eustress is a positive stress that people can use to their advantage, especially when it comes to performance. And I deal with this a lot with my clients, which is you can be a basketball player. And if you use that stress of that feeling of trying to reach a certain demand, so you're playing in the NBA finals and you have game 7 coming up, if you use that fear or that task that you are about to be handled, if you approach it with a positive attitude or a positive perspective, it can totally change the way you perform. Okay, so that results in a feeling of fulfillment. You look at it more of a challenge as opposed to a threat. And again, you're perceiving it as a positive task and not something that you're being threatened or you're fearing. And the negative stress is called distress, which will cause someone to be nervous and will cause someone to have high anxiety, worry, loss of confidence, and will cause them eventually to be or have a low self-esteem as time goes on. And this again comes from a feeling of pressure and not being able to meet the demand. So again, you can be, I'm going to bring the example of athletes because I love sports and this is who I work with, but you can be an athlete and when you feel like your coach is pressuring you to perform in a certain way, if you're not looking at it with the right perspective or looking at it as more of a challenge as opposed to a threat, that will cause you to be highly stressed, which causes your muscles to tense up, which causes your heart rate to go up, which causes fatigue to come quicker. So there's so many other things that come into factor when you're stressed, but no one wants to be stressed in those moments because it'll just hurt your performance from the get-go. Anna, take it away.
All right, welcome everybody. Well, kind of like following up what Mendy was saying, it's stress actually stimulates our sympathetic system. Those are autonomic nervous system. They just kind of happen, but we do have some control of them. Then the parasympathetic system is when you kind of like more relaxed and you're kind of meditating in a space of like vacation. And the sympathetic, it's more like the fight and flight when you think about it. Next. And as Mendy was saying, the sympathetic nervous system, when you do trigger that stress, there are positive aspects of the stress. And if you think about it, like in the ancient time, and we were trying to run from a dinosaur or from a lion, for example, you wanted to have that stress in your body. Stress does not necessarily mean something bad. What that do, it's actually inhibit your salivation, inhibit your stomach and your intestinal from working, and drain those blood supply for your muscles. And that way you can actually perform much better. That you don't want to be digesting your food that you just ate when you have a lion trying to catch you. You want to be able to run faster. You want to be able to like jump and do things that you actually need to do to survive. The problem when that happens for a long period of time, and that's what's happened with our society those days, is we do have that stress, something happen, and instead of we go back to the parasympathetic system and go back to the neutral position, we keep a 24 hours stress. And that's what's really damaging for the body, because if you think about it, your heart rate being high for 24 hours a day, many days a week, then now we have a problem. If you think about a shallow breath and the lack of the digestive system, then now you're getting all the problems that will cause in your health because your body is not working properly. Then it's very important to differentiate the stress per se. It's not something bad, but the long period of time, maintain that stress in your body, that's very damaging. Then As Tony was saying in the beginning, some people, when they see the word stress, they already panic. Then let's remove that concept and actually look at stress for what it is, and knowing that we have the power to respond to what's happening in front of us one way or the other. But the stress is not necessarily bad. Then next. One thing that also happen with the stress for a long period of time is not just damage our body, but it also affect our emotions. Then if you think about someone that always react with a fight, then as Mendy was mentioning about the boss having a situation, and every time that you hear that complaining from your boss, you get stressed, and every time you kind of fight back. Then as you fight back, you start developing a tendency to have more anger. And that becomes a new habit, and now becomes the habit creates, the behaviors become habits, and those are much harder to change. Then once we start getting more awareness of where we are, things can kind of shift much faster. Also, that's a lot of the work that we do as a coach. It's kind of creating the awareness with what are you feeling and how you're responding to each situation. Then usually when you have a stressful situation that you're kind of like unaware of your actions, you either go to a fight, or either you flight, you just try to leave and you just don't wanna. That's what the most common avoidance, when you're trying to reach someone, you're having a communication, trying to resolve a problem, and the person just don't want to do anything with you. And usually the avoidance and the flight, it creates a lot of anxiety, because it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. And that creates the anxiety. And the other option, it's usually the freeze. The freeze, it's just, I don't want to say anything. Please let me kind of like leave. Please leave me alone. That's kind of like the freezing feeling. You can run away. You can fight. You just kind of like stuck in that position. And the freezing, now you're creating depression. Then the way that we reverse is actually a reverse engineer, and kind of going back from, if you already have anxiety, anger, or depression, you can actually go back and reverse all that based on change your mindset, and change your belief, and change how you act and react to obstacles or challenges or things that happen in your life. Next. Then the way that we see in coaching, it's we have 6 influencers. The influences, it's usually what's caused us the stress. And the same way they can cause us the stress, they can also facilitate our life. Then if you think about it, it can be a social, physical, spiritual, environmental, mental, and emotional. And the way that if you think about the social, it's kind of like your interaction with your community, your neighbors, your co-workers. Those are the people that affect you and influence you, and those are the people that you also influence. One thing that I hear very often from my clients are people that have a tendency to be empathetics, where they just kind of absorb everybody else's feelings. And that is actually ways to manage that. We don't have to be walking around and carrying everybody else's feelings. Then that's a lot of the tools that I teach to my clients, to don't be affected by the social influencer, because we don't have to. And that itself can cause a lot of stress. Another thing that comes with the social aspect is the accountability. That if you have a good accountability group, if you have someone hold you accountable, it will decrease your stress. When you come home and you say to your partner, I want to lose weight, I want to eat healthy, I want to do all those things, and your partner say, no, I don't want any of that, that creates the stress. Then having a good team, a good accountability partner, someone to work with you towards your goal, it's also a good way to decrease the stress. We also have the physical. The physical is everything that we kind of know that we should be doing, and a lot of times we don't do it. And that's where the coach is really helpful, to kind of bring the gap between knowing and actually doing. Then the physical, we have the sleeping, we have nutrition, we have exercise. It's kind of like the health in general. A lot of my clients come with pain, since I'm also a physical therapist, and pain can create anxiety. it can create depression, it can create tons of other emotional components, because pain causes stress, not just stress in the body, but also the emotional stress. Another thing that people don't recognize as stress is your posture. If you have a desk job, or if you're sitting all day and you're working, and you think about your posture and you kind of hunch over and you're holding your body on that position all day, you're actually creating stress in your body. You're compressing your stomach, you're compressing your intestines, your organs are not flowing correctly. You're not having blood flowing through your legs, then that's also creating stress. Then the physical component can be your posture also. The physical component also can be how much awareness you have about your body. Then if you are sitting for a long time and you recognize, oh, my body starts getting stiff, and you actually get up, in that moment, your body awareness help you to decrease the stress. But if you don't have that body awareness, if you don't feel what's your body feeling, it will be much harder for you to avoid things that would cause further stress. Another influencer is spiritual. And when we think about the spiritual, it can be as broad as God, faith, trust, or it can be more the rational part. It can be your purpose, it can be your vision, it can be your goal, it can be why are you doing that and how determined you are. Then as much as we connect with the spiritual, less stress we're going to have. Then if we have a reason why we want to accomplish something, it's actually much easier to accomplish. Then if you have a reason why you don't want it to be in that posture, because you know that would cause you pain, for example, you're probably going to create more bioawareness to move. The purpose behind it's influence your stress as well. Now I'm going to pass back to Mendy.
Okay, cool. So the last three influencers we have environmental, which is the things that go on around you. So it can be your senses, which specifically would mean the things you hear, the things you see, the things you feel, the things you smell. So that would mean, do you just hear something that's causing you to be stressed, that you feel that you're becoming scared, or you're becoming you feel certain emotions are coming up for you, depending on obviously what that sound reminds you of. But let's say it's a gunshot, that can be a real stress indicator now, because either you've been reminded of something, or you're fearing something, which will cause you to be stressed. Seeing something can be something you just saw. You just saw a robber walk into a house. That's going to cause you to become extremely scared right away. And then you have feeling as well, which can be something you just felt. You just felt something, which again will remind you and cause you to be highly stressed. And then smelling would be obviously something you smell that again will make you become stressed, highly stressed immediately. The mental side, the mental influence, will be something, a self-imposed negative thought that you're putting on yourself. So you guys probably know this, but in coaching, this is kind of our forte, and we deal with this all the time, which is people saying things to themselves. These are all mental self-imposed thoughts that people say to themselves about themselves, which will cause them to feel certain ways. So it can be, I'm not good enough, I'm not talented enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not equipped enough for this job or for this presentation or for this project that I'm about to do. And when you come up with these thoughts in your mind, and like Anna said, it's conditioning. It's you wiring your brain to say and feel and think certain things. And as you rewire those neurons in your brain, you're more likely to make those thoughts come up again as they come up every single time. So it's conditioning your mind to think certain things and say certain things. And as whatever you decide, whether that's positive or negative, as your brain comes up with them, that will be very determining as to what you're gonna say or think in the future. And then lastly, you have emotional, which is an external information that goes straight to your limbic system, causing you to feel a certain emotion. So if you just heard news that someone's in the hospital, someone that you love is in the hospital, that will cause you to feel a certain emotion. It could be sadness, it could be apathy, it could be lethargy, it could be fear. And when those emotions come up, that might cause you to become highly stressed in those moments based on external information that you just found out. So let's go to the next slide. And we talked about this a little bit in the beginning, which is the power of your mind, meaning the things that you're thinking about and the fact that you're being stressed, you many times is going to be based on what you're thinking about. So if you're having negative thoughts or you're wiring your brain to think negative things, I can bet money that you will be somebody that's going to be more stressed than someone that doesn't. So we know that the things we say have power, how much more so the things we think. We have over between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts every single day. And you can ask yourself, are those thoughts mostly negative, or are they mostly positive, or are they neutral? You know, if you're thinking, if half of those thoughts even are negative thoughts, whether that's like we talked about the 6 influencers, if they're coming from any of those places, or more importantly, the mental side, if you're coming up with ideas in your mind and in your head of negative things that are going to come up, then you're more likely to be stressed than someone that doesn't. So it's interesting to think about how the power of our thoughts really do make matter when it comes to stress. It's also important to remember that every challenge you're given you're also given a solution. And I just thought it would be important to mention that you have someone like Stephen Hawking that just passed away. And he was someone that was diagnosed with ALS at a very, very young age. And the doctor told him, you have 2 years to live, go enjoy. And he decided in that moment that I'm not going to allow a doctor to decide how long I'm going to live. It's just that's not what you're trained to do. You're trained to diagnose me, if that, and go on your way. But to tell me that I have 2 years left to live is just not fair. You have no right to tell someone that they only have 2 years left of their life. And he took that and he decided, he was given a task. And so many people, I'm sure, that are told this every single day, every person that's diagnosed with something, the doctor comes in and tells them how long they have left to live. And many people go into depression, or they become, I'm sure, highly stressed. And I hope that none of us ever have to go through that. But the fact that Stephen, he made a decision in his mind, and he said, I'm not going to allow this doctor to tell me how I'm going to live my life and how long I'm going to live it for. So that's just an example of someone that was given a challenge. He was given a really big challenge. And in every part, if you want to look at the 6 influencers, he probably reached every single challenge from each of those influencers, and he still lived many, many more years after, much more than 2 years. And then Anna mentioned as well, your brain is a tool, essentially, where what you put into your mind, it'll come out through action as well as through emotion. So if you're putting in negative things into your mind and into your brain, you are very likely to feel and think negatively. It's just 1 + 1 = 2. So you can use it in a negative way or in a positive way. That's your choice. And most of the time, stress and anxiety is self-inflicted for that reason, where if we were able to track your thoughts, and we could look at someone that's depressed or has anxiety attacks, or someone that feels highly stressed, often if we were able to track those thoughts, we would be able to tell right away where those and why those thoughts and those feelings are coming from based on what you put into your mind. So let's go to the next slide. And that's Anna.
And that kind of tied together with Dr. Emoto experiment. There was a way to actually prove that that's not just us thinking that that's how it works, and that's actually how the body works. And it was a very interesting experiment, because he was able to get the molecules of the water and looking into the microscope, and he was able to see whatever you think and whatever you put your attention into it, it actually changes the molecules of the water. And if we think about it, that we have between 60 to 80%, depending on the research that you read it, of water in our body, then we can just think about it. Every time they say the word love, how many of those molecules in our body actually get a much more beautiful shape compared to the word I hate you, for example, or I hate myself, or I hate my body. And how many times a day so many people hate their weight, their hair, their eyes, how they're feeling, their dress that doesn't fit. How many times a day we repeat to ourselves those negative thoughts, and how many times a day are we actually reinforcing the beautiful words, I love you, gratitude, thank you for my eyes, thank you for being able to speak. How many people out there are not able to have those advantages that we take for granted because we have it? Then with that, it kind of wraps around with, if you are more having more positive thoughts, or if you face a challenge with a positive experience, you're actually going to trigger more your parasympathetic system. With that, you will have a better performance. You'll be able to relax and be able to focus better. And that's going to increase your health and have a more balanced life with less stress.
Awesome. Okay, so now that we know all about the stress, where it comes from and what it does, and what really the science of stress, everyone came here to figure out how to decrease it, right? So we're going to talk about the antidotes of stress and how to deal with it, how to decrease it, and how to eliminate if possible. So there is a tool I use, and we call it visioning, which essentially is using your imagination, which the beauty of that is going back to your childhood years, which we'd all love to do. So using your imagination to think about certain scenarios or ideal scenarios that you'd like to experience, and more importantly, that you will experience in the future. So the difference between imagination and reality is nothing, actually. So when you imagine something in your mind using every single one of your senses and really feeling like you were there, when you actually get there in real life, whether that would be in a day, a month, an hour, or a year, your mind says, oh my God, I've been here before. I've felt this. I know what this is like. I'm not going to overreact or become fearful or be stressed because I understand and I recognize this event that's going on right now. So again, going back to an athlete example, if you're a basketball player and you have a big game coming up and you are really scared, you're nervous, and you're becoming stressed because of that, using this vision tool to imagine what you'd like to experience in that event, and really going there with all of your imagination, feeling what you want to feel, seeing what you want to see, hearing what you want to hear, and really using this tool for an ideal image. It allows you so that when you actually do get to that basketball game, you will feel like, oh, I've been here before. I know what this is like. Oh, I've heard that noise. I've seen that face. I've felt this kind of ball. Oh, I've shot that kind of shot. And you kind of go through it in your mind before. So it's like, okay, I'm really, really familiar with this event. So it causes you, and in regards to stress, it'll cause you to be more relaxed, because now, like we talked about before, if it's a demand that we're trying to reach that scares us, when we've seen it before, we know what the outcome is because we already envisioned it. Whether that's really the outcome or not is obviously yet to be known. But in our minds, and calming our nerves and calming our fear, that's the best way to do it, by saying, oh, okay, I've seen this before. I know what this is like. And that's going to be the most effective way to calm yourself if you're about to do something in the future that you might feel might get you stressed. And the next slide is another great tool, which I know Tony has a lot of info on this, which is finding your why. And the reason the why is so important is because when you have a why, you have direction, you have momentum, you have motivation. And asking yourself when you are highly stressed or you're having an anxiety attack or you feel like you're starting to become depressed is ask yourself, what are you doing here? Why am I here? What, you're at work, you're at home. What put you in this scenario? What actions led you here? And once you start to answer these questions, it really starts to give you a direction, which will leave you with a decision about whether you want to continue, whether you want to stop, whether you want to pause, and what kind of steps you want to take with this scenario or this scenario that you're left in. And once you take action on that, right away, action will allow you to make the stress either speed up and be over with, or you'll get rid of it because you're taking action, and thinking about what could be is the best way to prolong stress. Just thinking about, okay, what if I stay here? What if? How about do something and find out? That's going to be the fastest way to get over stress immediately. So really finding out what drives you, what gets you out of bed every morning. And when you start to think and answer these questions, it gives you insight and some direction in regards to the stress. So it'll tell you, if you're with your child and you're like, oh my God, you just made another mess on the floor, whatever, I'm not going to tell you what your why would be because that's for you to figure out, but whatever that why would be, whether coming up with something and really answering those questions will make you feel like you're living for something more than just this stressful moment, and you're living for something much greater. And when you start to live for something much greater than yourself, we feel less of ourselves. And when we feel less of ourselves, there's no room for stress, because the more ego we consume, the more it consumes us, which makes us feel ourselves. And when your why becomes greater than your pain, that's when you know that it's real. That's when you know that it actually lasts. And having that really, really imprinted and engraved inside of your psyche, knowing that you wake up every morning for a certain reason, or knowing that you perform on this stage for a specific reason. And there's so many stories, I know we're short on time, but there's so many stories of people that found their why and their performance has gone through the roof, or they've really start to experience life at another level because they are living at a totally increased, I want to say, like, I'm looking for a certain word, but it's not coming, but you're living at a level that you've never experienced before because your why is so vibrant.
Thank you, Mendy. That was awesome. So my name is Tony Branner, and I'm going to come at this from a little bit different perspective today. I have been teaching stress management or energy management for over 30 years, and a long time ago, our approach was that we would try to get rid of all the stress. How's that working out for you? It's really difficult to just eliminate it. We're always going to have financial worries. We're always going to have family members with illnesses and deaths in our family, and a flat tire every now and then, and your spouse puts the toilet paper this way and you want it to go this way. All of those things that we deal with. But we do know that when you're stressed, it can affect your health. And part of it is your perception of the stress, how much it affects your health. But part of it is creating a shield so you can make your body less vulnerable to the effects of the stress. I recently worked with some first graders, and I asked them what was stressing them out. And they said their brothers and sisters. I thought it would be homework or something like that, but they said it was their brothers and sisters. But we know, like Mendy and Anna said, chronic or sustained stress can do so many damaging things to your body. And we know that it can lead to chronic systemic inflammation, which is the root cause of all diseases. There are processes in place that increase inflammation when you're stressed. We know that it can flip your genes to the wrong direction. So there's something called epigenetics that you can actually turn your good genes on and turn your bad genes off. But stress can have a negative effect on that. So that's something to be concerned about. We know that those environmental stressors have increased over the last 50 years. Our food supply has been damaged. We're genetically modifying our food. There's more toxins in the environment. There's, you know, more traffic. There's more pollution, all of those things. We know that our diet has become way more acidic and less alkaline. Alkaline foods are like fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and whole grains and beans, which protect us from some of the effects of the stress. We know that we have more oxidative stress. And that was my research in graduate school. So you have to breathe oxygen, but the very oxygen you breathe is what causes aging and disease. And these little free radicals actually they're like little hot BBs, and they're bombarding the cells in your body. If you think of an apple as oxygen hits it, you know what happens. Well, the same idea is happening in your cells. And this whole process is called oxidative stress. We also see people who have a lot of stress in their life have shorter telomeres. And the telomeres are an indication of how long you will live. And the more stress you have in your life, the more they become short and decrease your life expectancy. So all of these things are bombarding us, you know, the emotional stress like we talked about before, the environmental stress, all of that. But, you know, it's coming from all directions, and it affects every aspect of our physiology, our heart, our lungs, our liver, our brain, our digestive tract. Right? And we know that some really simple things that you can do can counteract that. And that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, because you can neutralize those free radicals and actually decrease the oxidative stress in your body simply by eating more fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and beans. You're reducing your stress. So some of it isn't that high level thinking like Mendy and Anna. It's some really simple changes that you can make in your life. And that's what I want to kind of address today. We call that decreasing your stress vulnerability. We also know that your digestive tract is very much related to your stress level and your microbiome. We recently learned that about 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut. And you have good guys and bad guys in your gut. We actually have like 5 to 7 pounds of bacteria that live in us and on us. Kind of creepy, right? But if you can build up the good bacteria, it produces more of those neurotransmitters that make us feel happy, make us feel calm, decrease anxiety, decrease depression. So part of this is just your simple choices about how are you taking care of you. And sometimes we feel selfish to take time to take care of ourselves. But here's what the research shows. The people who eat right, who exercise, who surround themselves with positive people, who drink enough water, who get enough sleep, create an armor. Think of a knight in shining armor. So even when they are stressed, the stress doesn't get in to make them sick. And that's kind of where I'm coming from for my section tonight, is how can you reduce your stress vulnerability? So even if you do have a bad day, even while you're trying to learn these techniques of thinking positive and realigning your actions with your why and all of that, there's some simple things we can do. Number one is move your body every single day. Even if it's a short walk your dog. I like to walk when I'm doing conference calls instead of sitting all day. Find something that you can do and help your children do the same thing, because we know that inactivity increase the damaging results from stress. Sleep is one of those things that is kind of elusive sometimes. We have all this screen time right before bedtime. Sometimes our room is not completely dark. Sometimes we eat a really heavy meal before bedtime, and instead of regenerating our body has to spend all night digesting your food, right? So lighter meals, a completely dark room, limit that screen time, do some deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation. Anna's going to help us at the end here, learn how to relax a little bit. And all of that can really make a huge difference in reducing the effects of the stress. Hydration is the easiest thing to fix. Your body is mostly water, like Anna just showed us. Your brain is 85% water. When you wake up in the morning, you're already 2% down. So your focus, your attention, your energy is going to not be where it should be. And then by the afternoon, you just get this huge energy drop, and that can lead to partial depression, more anxiety, just because you don't have the energy to deal with the situations in your life. So instead of worrying about measuring liters of water, just look in the toilet every time you go. It should be clear, maybe lightly straw colored, but clear. And this even works with kids because they love talking about the toilet. And then I'm known as the crazy plant lady, because what we've learned is that the people who eat the most plants are the healthiest, even with things like memory and focus. So we're doing it to prevent disease so we can live the longest and the healthiest. We're doing it for performance so we can be the best we can be, and for cellular protection. And so we know that the countries where the average person eats the most plant food, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and beans, have the least disease, even things like dementia and Alzheimer's. We also know that they have the best ability to not have the stress affect their health. So just eating more plants, jump in the salad bowl, jump in the fruit bowl, jump in the stir fry, and you reduce your risk of every known chronic disease, as well as decreasing your vulnerability to the stress. These are different countries. The green represents the average amount of plant food. The red represents deaths from heart disease and cancer. So you can see, we know that stress kills. We know that stress is related to heart disease and cancer. And we know that the diet can greatly reduce your risk of those. So it all starts to be part of a big puzzle. We know that it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, just that you have a plan. Some of the studies have shown that. Well, we know when you become sick, the stress level greatly increases. There's misery, there's pain, but there's also a huge financial hit that maybe you weren't planning on. So working with financial planners can also be a big part of this, as well as taking care of yourself so you don't have that terrible diagnosis where you have to spend your hard-earned money on medication and your valuable time going to doctor's visits and hospitals. Also, having a plan. You don't just wake up in the morning and say, wow, I sure hope I eat healthy today. You have to have a plan for it. You have to prep your food. Go ahead and spend an hour or two after you grocery shop roasting vegetables, cutting up the fruits and vegetables, making some hummus. So all week long, you can benefit from the time that you've spent preparing that food. Have a plan for when you eat out so you don't blow it when you eat out, and you can have that energy that you need to deal with the stress in your life every single day. I make these salad in a jars on Sunday, and they're just as fresh on Friday. My husband and I can really enjoy those. I make little healthy protein balls, all from plants, keep them in the freezer so I can grab those instead of a dessert. Kids like healthy food too, but you can make it more fun, put it in compartments, make it so it doesn't touch each other, put it out. A lot of times we think there's this temper tantrum with our toddlers, and really they're just hungry. And you need to keep that blood sugar on an even keel, again, so that you can have a calm reaction when stress happens in your life, when things aren't going your way. Maybe your sibling took your toy. Stress can be there for toddlers as well. And then just really get involved in your community, because being around positive people can lift you up. And farmers markets are a great place, not only to get the healthy food that you need, but to meet other positive, like-minded people, talk to the farmers. Also, you can cheat a little bit. This is called a whole food concentrate that I use with all of my clients, because we know it's difficult to eat every color of the rainbow. And that's what we need to do to keep inflammation down, to keep our immune system balanced. This is called Juice Plus whole food concentrates. My family's had this for 23 years, and we've been able to accomplish so much more with less stress, because we're not sick, because we have a lot of energy, and it comes in little capsules and chewies. And my kids now are 27 and 24, and they've just been able to do so much more because of good nutrition, because of exercise, Make sure you're checking out anything that you're putting into your body to make sure it has published research. And remember that oxidative stress, it can actually damage your DNA, and that's a mutation which could lead to cancer. And that can actually happen because of stress, from outside stressors, from emotional stress, from environmental stress. Well, guess what? People who eat more fruits and vegetables decrease that damage 66% in old people, 44% in young people. So what you eat really, really matters in your fight against stress. We use it with cancer patients, absolutely amazing. Smoothies are also a really good way to bolster your body against the stress. You can pack a whole lot of stuff in a smoothie. I like to put in all kinds of vegetables, bananas. I like to use the Juice Plus Complete Shake because it has 15 plant foods, everything non-GMO. It's awesome. Gardening is another way that you can decrease stress, and studies have been done to back that up. Plus, again, you're having a new way to get vine-ripened organic produce into your body right off the vine. So these are my 2 tower gardens that I keep in my backyard. It's awesome. Or you can have a traditional garden. So by doing all of these things, you're going to balance your immune system. You're going to prevent disease. You're going to have the energy to enjoy your life, to really put some energy into reducing your stress and managing your stress to be the best you can be, the peak performance. And we have lots of fun programs to help you with this. One's for people who like to change really gradually through our Health Made Simple community. And then another one is for people who are like, I'm ready, let's go for it. I want to do my deep breathing, my mindfulness. I want to change my diet. I want to move my body. I want to get rid of those foods that are tearing my health down. So ask the person who invited you on tonight, because all together we can take healthy back. And that's what we're calling part of our healthy living revolution. And so I'm honored to have been on tonight. I'm going to turn it back over to Anna before we finish to kind of lead us in just a calming meditation before we sign off. And Anna, back to you.
All right. One of the things that I wanted to talk about meditation, people has a misconception that it's related to religion, or it's related to trying to empty your mind. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, I can't meditate. And the reason they can't meditate is because they haven't found the meditation that actually works for you. All of meditation really is, it's triggered the parasympathetic response that would calm down the sympathetic, the stress, the fight and flight. That's really what meditation is. It's nothing super hard. It can be as simple as close your eyes and take a deep breath. It can be as simple as watch how your body feeling. Then that's one of the things I like to explain to my clients initially, because it drops all the resistance about meditation. That way you can just trigger all the body's sensors to relax. And then you can actually get the answers that you needed, that you can focus, you can actually get clarity on how you're going to even decrease the stress. Then if you feel called to and you want to just experiment a little bit what that feels like, you go ahead and close your eyes and just kind of sit back. And a very simple way to do it is really just to focus on your breath. And as you start doing that, don't even change anything. Notice how as soon as we focus on the breath, we have a tendency to change. Just focus and just notice, how is your breath? Is that shallow? Is that deep? And notice that little voice that keeps telling you, you should be doing that way. And how many times a day that little voice tells you how you should be doing something? And meditation can be just that. Just observe, how are you feeling? And in that moment, you can ask your body, what do you need? And maybe what you need right now, it's roll your shoulders. Maybe it's let your neck roll to the side. Or maybe what you need is actually get up and move. Just notice how you feel and what your body is asking you to do. And you can try to do that maybe every time that you open the refrigerator. Maybe every time that you wash your hands. Very simple things that we do every day can be a trigger for us to just observe and pause. And that's your minute of self-care. That's your minute of relaxation. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't need to be long. If you'd like a little bit more of the exploration of the meditation and other tools, I am going to be hosting a meditation session next Wednesday. Then we can get a full hour of exploration for different ways to bring simple techniques to our life. And that pause, like everything that we say, when you trigger your body to relax, that's also self-healing. That's also let your body to let the cells to repair, like Tony was mentioning about what you eat it. That's also a moment that you can let everything drop and let your body repair in that second. Yeah, it can be very simple. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Bring that back to Tony.
Thank you, Anna. And we're just honored to have been here tonight. We have pros through our Health Made Simple community on so many different topics and workshops that we do. So stay connected. And we have one coming up on Tuesday night. That is our full health talk. So ask the person who invited you to get the information for that Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern Time. And we have all kinds of other wonderful, wonderful things. Anna's meditation. So I'll turn it back over to them to say good night.
Yeah, I just want to mention, just going back to what Tony said on one of those charts. I've been to Thailand and Vietnam, and it's just really interesting. This is just like proving that chart is right. I've been to Thailand and Vietnam, and the people there, they live a really, really long time, and they have fruits and vegetables on every single street corner. Everywhere you walk, there's pineapples and there's strawberries and there's green beans. They have marketplaces full of fruits and vegetables. So that's just really, really interesting to hear.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this and have a most wonderful night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.